Today we're going to be talking about a new product in Eagle's portfolio, Cynet XDR. And as always, I got a little help from some of my friends. So from Eagle, we also have Patrick Mann. Do you want to say hi, Patrick?
Hey, everybody, how's it going?
Thank you, sir. Patrick's going to be helping with the Q&A. He's going to toss up some polls. Before I forget, if you do have questions, no need to save them to the end. Toss them in the chat or the Q&A, and Patrick will try to figure out the best time to interrupt me or Ken. No pressure, Patrick. And then also the star of the show, he's going to be doing most of the talking today. We've got Ken Swain from Cynet. Hey, Ken.
Good morning.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and get into it? So one thing that I'm really appreciative of at Eagle is just the customer tenure, right? You guys tend to stick around and work with Eagle for a long time. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I like to think that part of that is because we're a little different. We are an engineering led company. We're owned by engineers. 3/4 of our company is engineering, and we don't like to just sell everything under the sun. We think it's our responsibility to go out there and perform due diligence, to evaluate products. We want to make sure, I've got it here on the screen, that not only are they secure, that's a really good topic today, but we try to find products that have simplicity over complexity, that have really great support, and of course, are they solving the problem, right? Do they have the right business outcomes? So we spend a lot of time on that due diligence, which is a really great segue into my next slide. So we spent at Eagle about the last year evaluating all of the major players in the EDR, MDR, XDR space. We had our pen testers do some pretty advanced testing. We ran red team assessments against them. We measured how many indicators of compromise they detected. We looked at the system usage. We tried to figure out if they were doing memory scanning for fileless attacks and how often. We really put them through the ringer. And Cynet really bubbled up to the top for a number of reasons. Without stealing too much of Ken's thunder, I just wanted to go over some of the stuff that impressed Eagle the most about Cynet. So a lot of products out there claim to be XDR, but either when you peel back the covers, you find out they're missing some crucial features, or they keep some of those features behind a paywall in their super elite pro awesome version, right? That become cost prohibitive. But when you look at Cynet, it has all of the bells and whistles. Naturally, it's got next-gen antivirus and endpoint detection and response, but it also has network detection and response and user behavior analytics. So it can correlate and collect all of that telemetry and make really smart decisions and mitigate threats faster than most. It also has something that is becoming increasingly popular in this space, and that's deception technology. So Cynet will automatically go out there and create dummy files and fake entities on your network so that when you do have a bad actor in your neighborhood and he hasn't been detected and he's probing the network, he's going to touch stuff that he shouldn't, and he's going to be detected even faster. And then finally, all you folks have a growing list of SaaS apps, and they have a really great option around security posture management. Finally, something we're not going to talk about today, but look for it in an upcoming webinar. They also have cloud-based SIEM if you want to collect additional telemetry from, say, your firewall. So in our testing, Cynet was actually the most lightweight client we tested. It used the least amount of RAM and was very thrifty on CPU. I think that gets back to the fact that they developed this in-house from the ground up. And what's interesting there is you see a lot of companies trying to rush to market, and they choose to acquire technology, but then they spend all their time integrating. There's clunky AIs. You just lose effectiveness and efficiency. That's not the case with Cynet. One great point here is a lot of their competitors, when they talk about deploying on endpoints, you get into the server space and they either have limited telemetry they want to collect on the server because they don't want to beat the server up, right? Or they just outright don't recommend it. So with Cynet, it could go everywhere. It's very lightweight and effective. You can put it on Windows, Mac, Linux. You can put it on your servers because at the end of the day, you want it on every endpoint in your environment. Another thing we see with our customers is there's very few customers that actually have that true 5 to 7 staffed, security operations center that Gartner touts. Most of our customers, they have the jack of all trades, master of none. Maybe they promoted from within. So Eagle feels really strongly about this. In the security space, you really have to have the product that also comes with the talent. So you get that with Cynet. If you have issues, they're your ride or die. If you have to mitigate a threat, they're going to help you. They're going to help you interpret alerts. You can actually send them files and they will put them in their own sandbox and give you a report. It really is full featured MDR, and it's something I heard time and time again when I talk to existing customers. Probably my personal favorite thing about Cynet is the fact that it does run on autopilot on day one, but it has a ton of advanced capabilities. And the reason I like that is when I go out and I talk to customers, I either meet customers that are struggling with what all these darn acronyms are, right? They're just getting started, or I sit down with people that are so good at cybersecurity that I feel like a chump and I go away with a big list of questions that I have to answer, right? So with Cynet, day one, it's going to run, it's going to protect you. You have all that MDR, but as you start to hone your skill sets, I'm sure Ken's going to show the incident view. You get these really advanced views. You can search for 0 days and remnants with threat hunting. You can use custom playbooks if you say want to create a ServiceNow ticket or block a firewall port. So once again, runs on autopilot, but it has all of those advanced capabilities that a sophisticated cybersecurity expert would want. So the last two bullets I wanted to cover on the next slide. So if you go out there and you say want to buy a storage area network, a lot of folks will go to the Gartner Magic Quadrant. It's not the end all be all. You know, you don't buy the thing that's in the up top right, but hopefully you talk to Eagle as well. But similarly, when you're looking at security products and EDR products, a really great place to start are the most recent MITRE ATT&CK evaluation results. And so that's what you're looking at here. And in 2022, you can see that Cynet scored in the top 3. And when you look at the top 3, it's essentially a dead heat. We're talking percentage points and even less. If you look at the Magic Quadrant-like chart in the upper right, you can also see how well Cynet performed. I think that's important to mention because when we went through our due diligence with Cynet, not only was it full featured and effective, but it was also the most cost effective of all of those top performers. So it's more likely to fit into your budget. It's more likely you're going to have money to spend on other things. And I think that's also really important in the mid-market. I do want to mention that I have a really great PDF. It's about 10 pages that not only goes into what the MITRE ATT&CK evaluation is, how it works, but also touts some of Cynet's strengths and capabilities in more detail. So let us know if you want to see that, or I think, Gail, you can just send it out when you send the thank you email out, but I think a lot of folks would love to see that.
So guys, I'm going to start at the very beginning. I'm pretty much unstructured as I go through this. So let's try to keep it interactive, and you guys feel free to ask questions and we'll field them whenever they're appropriate. A lot of times when we buy a platform, it kind of goes off into the dark and it's very complicated to use, and we only wind up using bits and pieces of it, and we spend all of this money and we're not sure if we're getting the full value. Well, Cynet's approach is different. Cynet wants to make sure that everything that you think you're getting, you're actually using. So we try to make that Fortune 500 technology really approachable, easy to use. And it starts right at the very beginning. Being able to understand from a dashboard level, something you could put up in a SOC or keep it up on a monitor somewhere, just to understand the threats in your environment and what entities are they targeting, user-based, hosts, networks, files, so that you can understand where things are moving and what you might need to do. But let's get into the meat. That's the pretty, let's get into the really good stuff. A lot of times as we start dealing with issues in an environment, you lose context. So actually, let's jump real quick to context. For the more advanced things in an environment, it is very important to understand how the pieces work. And that's one of the things, going back to the intro screen there, that is one of the most important things about understanding which segment it's facing, is understanding the context, because something targeting a user is very different than something just trying to infect files, and that's also very different than something that is just trying to scan a network. All of those things require different responses. So again, having the context of this deep forensics is very, very important. So let's jump in here to the alert screen. So our alerts try to straddle that middle ground. Some of us are used to tools that are very simple one-liners, right there. This machine had this type of alert at this time. Good luck. Others are, here is 13 pages on why this file has this hash. Well, that does me no good either. Both of those are equally useless, just different ways. Cynet tries to give you the most important pieces that you could ask for. So where something happened, what machine, what user was involved, all the time steps, and probably the most important to day-to-day operation, what was done? Was anything done? Was it deserving to be done, or was it just something that needed to be alerted on that, hey, you needed to know? And so as we scroll through here, you can get an idea and notice that as we get down, you can start to see where playbooks are executed and the various actions. So that's all good info at a glance to know, is it okay if I go get the cup of coffee, or do I need to just throw everything away right now and just go back home because it's a bad day? Well, we can kind of help you get that feel, and even more to the point, to help you understand how to get ahead of the threat, anything that is trying to move in your environment that has multiple components, or that we think is part of a more orchestrated attack based upon what we've seen throughout our customers, what we're getting from threat intelligence and things like that. The tool will automatically create this incident view. And think of this as a simplified incident response that happens autonomously. So automatically, without human intervention, the AI built into the agent itself, sitting on every machine, can make the call to do this and perform a more detailed remediation steps. So in this case, just walking through the pretty colors here, you can see that we didn't get the malware to execute. Well, that's good. So now I know that the bad thing didn't actually happen, but it tried. And the reason we know it tried is because it attempted this network connection. Well, we saw that and we go, okay, well, we need to stop that malicious connection because it started the download. We could see it in memory, and we decided to go ahead and kill it. But we don't need to kick the entire machine off the network. Not a lot of us have the redundancy necessary if we're going to start wholesale isolating any event in our environment. So we need to be very selective with our remediations. So what we do is take a scalpel and very surgically carve out that one session and say, don't do this again. Don't allow this to happen. So we get that and we make sure that that happens. And then the AI goes, okay, well, sessions on a machine don't just get created randomly. There's a reason that happened. Was the user issuing a command? Was there an application running? Was there a website visit that we need to look at? What's going on here? And we find the root cause, what initiated the session, and it's this very stealthily named Shadow Death. And so we understand that that's a scheduled task. We understand what application or what binary on the machine was involved. Okay, so this is a bad thing. Let's go ahead and deal with that as well. At this point, a lot of tools would stop and just end the conversation unless there was a predefined action to be taken that a human has told it, go do this. This is where our AI shows its power because it doesn't stop. It now turns from a reactive state to a proactive state. Okay, we know that this one attempt to compromise this machine or to exploit this machine has occurred. Now let's start threat hunting. So now we've got two good, what we call indicators of compromise, or IOC. And so we start hunting throughout the environment and we find 5 machines that have made that connection that have not executed code yet. And then we find 14 machines with that scheduled task. Great. We've got 2 good remediation actions. We know our targets now. Let's go ahead and perform remediation there. And so at this point, we've now searched our entire environment, found where we could be compromised, and then remediated those things. But that doesn't end the conversation. We perform another step, and that's try to find patient 0 and the original user that was involved in the attack. And you can see we found the original, the first place in our environment that the scheduled task was, and we now return that to you so that if you do have compliance obligations or cybersecurity insurance that's going to ask you those questions, you already have the answers. What's even more impressive is that we did all of that in a minute. All of those things are important. This nice report up here that giving you the bullet point details, the artifacts down here, all of those things are important. But and this automation using the AI is important, but that's not the end of the story either with Cynet. This is where our SIOPS team, our MDR team, which we call SIOPS, steps in. So by the time they get this alert, of course, this is already done. They start their investigation. They're going to look at all of these individual components as well. They're going to continue the investigation just with human intelligence and intuition, backed by the data that we have, again, from threat intelligence, again, what we're seeing from our customer base and their years of experience, and they're going to write up a finding for you. And that could be very simply, we've covered everything here. It looks like it's good. You can go ahead and close it, or it could be more complex. I need you to go in the tool and I need you to perform this remediation action and this remediation action and this remediation action. If you need help doing those, please call us. So it could span the gamut. Now, there is another piece that I think doesn't get mentioned enough when you start talking about our MDR team. A lot of companies, they'll have a solution and then they will have a retainer with a team that could do an incident response. With Cynet, you don't need the retainer because our SIOPS team will do the incident response for you. We're not going to leave you stranded. If this is something that warrants, either by our investigation or by what your needs are, warrants an incident response, you get assigned an engineer, they're on the phone with you or a Zoom call like this, and they're walking through the full incident response for you. They'll produce a report at the end, letting you know. Yeah, go ahead.
Ken, I just wanted to add one thing that was not only touted by our pen testers when they evaluated your product, but actually got mentioned in those MITRE ATT&CK evaluations, is that you guys were exceptional at catching people just a few sub-steps in to an attack that would normally be mapped out in the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So you guys were literally not waiting until they actually fulfilled that classic textbook indicator of compromise. You were catching them early. And once again, if you read that report, you'll see what I'm talking about. So that was really impressive.
Yeah, that's a very important piece. You know, a lot of companies will wait till they've got a bunch of things down one of those chains before they ever activate and step in and do something, because they want to be sure that they're right. Because of the context that we have, we're able to make those determinations much earlier in those chains. That's a good point. So guys, let's jump now. Let's take a little bit deeper look at one of these alerts, because sometimes as our teams advance, we need data. And when we need it, we need it. We don't want to be jumping from machine to machine to machine to machine to get it. So one of the things that Cynet does is in each one of our alerts, we provide all of the deep detail, including mapping it to MITRE where applicable, telling you about what caught it, its hashes, all of the real technical deep stuff, and including, let's look at this one here. You can see the MITRE mapping here. You can see the exact engine that caught it. So again, trying to give you all the data that you need to help understand what happened, no matter what your level is, from, hey, I've just got a couple of guys managing my infrastructure for me, or I've got 30 people on a cybersecurity team. We can feel the need. We can give you as much or as little as you want. Again, it's not hidden behind a paywall. It's just here. It's your data, so we present it to you. Now, another point that we kind of brushed upon earlier is we want you to be able to perform every remediation action in the tool. So for example, let's say that this dark side, which is of course ransomware, if I get this alert, and let's say I didn't have a remediation and nothing happened over here, and I wanted to perform some tasks. Well, from a simple click, I can get multitude of tasks. I can whitelist something if it's a false positive. I can send it to our SOC for deeper evaluation. I can send it to a sandbox for analysis. I can even perform remediation actions, even down to doing a full isolation or performing a rollback. If I need to, I can even get a remote shell right from my web browser into that machine. all of this without having all of these remediations, without having to jump, RDP into a machine to do an investigation, anything of that nature. We can just perform it here. So let's look at the context that I've talked so much about. And then I'm going to kind of end it with talking about our new playbooks, because I think that those are cool. So let's take a look at what our playbook, what our forensics details gives us. I talked about context earlier, and that's important. So each file that I look at, and this, no matter how I get there, from the alert screen or clicking into forensics, as my team becomes more advanced, I can get all of the detail for a file, such as what virus total says about it, what threat intelligence says about it. I can look at who has access to it, what machines it exists on, and notice here that we even do this functionality on Linux. So Windows, Linux, and Mac we cover. And as we get down here into more Windows files, DLLs, and so forth, you can see how we cover those as well, including looking for digital certificates, looking for who signed it. Has there been any alerts? Who does it say it's published by? So again, very powerful pieces of data. And that carries through to hosts as well as users, network connections, so domains, and even the socket level, looking at each individual connection, what established it, and risk rating those as appropriate. And one of the things about all of the components here is the way we layer in our protection. So from this settings screen, it gives me a good opportunity to talk about those things. Everybody pretty much is looking for a vendor that provides heuristics, signature-based, as well as artificial intelligence, machine learning. That's kind of the new baseline of what we're all looking for in a solution. Well, Cynet wants again to take that a little bit further and give you enterprise level protection just without the spend and the complexity. So in addition to those things, we provide user behavior analysis. Why is a user logging in on Sunday when they've never done that? And more importantly, why are they now running a compiler and they've never done that? They're an accountant. They don't know how to spell compiler. Why is that being ran? This is not their normal job. They shouldn't be doing it. Or why is an engineer running an accounting software now? That probably shouldn't happen either, right? So these are all things that the user behavior analysis can pick up. We also do that same thing on the network side, looking at anomalous network activity and alerting to things that pop out, such as port scanning, enumeration, and those type of things. Another piece, and this one is a bit more advanced, and that is our zero trust methodology. That is probably one of the things that doesn't get touted enough, at least in the last MITRE report, that we're going to try to make them focus on this time, is the way that we do zero trust. Because unlike some of our competitors who blanket just say, all right, we're going to start with zero knowledge and zero trust, so nothing trusts anything, we at least start with a database of known applications, known good applications that perform modifications to your system, edit files, and those type of things. So starting there allows us to have a good approach, and anything that is not known is considered bad. That gives you a really big head start on current malware and threats because you're so far ahead now. Taking that bit a step further, we all know that attackers are very brilliant. They're smart. And in fact, you could just look at the news and see how intelligent that they are. They find ways around everything. So there needs to be another line of defense. Kind of think of it as the last line of defense. And that's where our deception technology comes in. Being able to present users in the environment, files on the hosts, and other hosts on the network. Enticing a bad guy to interact with those things might expose that you have an attacker where nothing else does. So let's say that you have an attacker who is really smart. They were able to compromise some credentials. They log in over normal channels, just like your normal user would, maybe a VPN or something of that nature. And then they start looking around very slowly on your network. Well, that will likely go undetected, or at least it's very difficult to detect until they do something so anomalous that we're going to trigger. But what if they touch a system that's not real, or a file that they shouldn't touch, or try to load into an account or change into an account that doesn't exist? Well, those are clear indicators that something is wrong here. And those gives us that early warning to those very, very advanced attackers. Now, let's look at the last feature that I promised, because to me, the way we approach this is so refreshing that I think it's one of our key features when we start going back to that automation and power perspective, and that's our playbooks. A lot of companies have a similar concept. I think it's just our approach that's a little different. So one, our PsyOps team and our threat intelligence team pushes these down, and we'll all you have to do is decide if you want them on or not, just by flipping a switch and saying, what alert do you want this to trigger for? Or I could have it trigger for all alerts. But when we look at the playbook itself, it's really simple. It's easy to follow. We can add in true or false conditions into any branch here that we want to look at. I can drag and drop queries, and even the fill-ins are drop downs. So I don't even have to write any code. It's all here. If I want to perform an advanced remediation, such as I decide that in certain cases, I am going to isolate, I need to perform that function. That's also drag and drop. And I don't even have to know how to do that well. I can always pick up the phone and call our PsyOps team or your customer success manager, which everybody gets free of charge, and they will help build these out for me to meet my particular needs. So even our most complex thing, to where we can interact with firewalls and do all of these outward integrations and look at data in very unique and entertaining ways, those are all easy to use. It's drag and drop, to the point to where when this first came out, us engineers got together and said, okay, let's go nuts. Let's just go crazy and see what we can do. And then we built this monstrosity. What's funny about this is that all of this stuff was over investigated. We looked for every single thing here. The end result of all of this was block an IP. Does it? But even this very complex, multiple steps, several queries going on at the same time, even that was done in 8 minutes or under 8 minutes. So to kind of wrap all of this up into a nice bow and kind of put a frame around it, Cynet provides the advanced features that you need to not only detect threats, but respond to them automatically, backed up by human intelligence that will support you not only through configuration and optimization, but all the way to incident response. We do this in an easy to use package that is user friendly. We provide all the support to get up and running. So Cynet really wants to bring that enterprise class level of protection to organizations that don't have the budget to hire staff to do it for them.
Yeah, that's awesome, Ken. Ken, if you covered this and I didn't notice because I was building the wheel of wind, I apologize. Did you go over briefly the threat hunting capabilities, just the ability to search across all that telemetry?
I did from an automatic perspective, but let's talk about it from a manual perspective. So let's say that we have some security experts in our environment and we want to start looking for things that might be interesting. So maybe what I'm looking for is there mimikatz in my environment? That's a simple one, right? First of all, we're going to alert on that very early on, but so let's start looking. Good, I don't have that one. Okay, so now let's look for something else. Let's look for iExplore. Oh, there we go. So even for advanced file searches, looking across your environment to see if they exist, it is just simple search queries. And here you get an idea of being able to look at where things are, being able to understand the host that each one of these files lives on, and the risk rating of that host.
Yeah, and I
So
think that's great because sometimes you really can't see into all the machine learning and AI and analytics and rules that Cynet has in the back end. But if you want to feel good, right, about a 0-day or a remnant, you've got a really quick way to do that, which is nice.
Absolutely. And here's another component that that this gives you, another piece of the pie that this fills out that a lot of people don't think about is operational stuff. So let's say this goes much or far beyond security and security essentials, but let's just say that you want to know if there's any machines that are running out of memory in your environment, right? I mean, that could be an issue as well. So I'm going to start a search looking through my environment for any machines that have their free memory. Let's do percentage. This one actually makes more sense. Memory percentage bigger than 75. So there's all the machines in my environment that are using more than 75% of their memory. And I can even turn that on. And now I can see a column with their memory. Now, I could also create a policy that says low memory. I can give it a risk rating. I'm going to give it 0, but I'm also going to open an alert for that. So now not only do I have security searches going on, but I can even have an operational search as well, helping maintain the greater health of our environment. All of this without writing code. So if we can do this very simply looking for things like memory, imagine what you could do and the power you have and the ease that you can leverage that when you're hunting for files or want to know if a user has logged in at this time or has logged into this system or has done X, Y, or Z, or their password is expired or they've locked their account. You can get really creative in here and really customize the tool to round out your greater environment.
Yeah, it's really comprehensive. And once again, day one, you want an XDR package that protects your environment, and this stuff's a little overwhelming. That's great. It runs on autopilot. But just to reiterate what I said earlier, as your skill sets grow, you can really go down the rabbit hole with this product. And when you meet the founders, they'll tell you that this was built for pen testers, right, and incident responders. And you can kind of see that DNA when you really start to get into some of these advanced features.
Yeah, I would second that, Brian. I really love the way that the data is presented here in this, in this product, and allows you to think along that MITRE ATT&CK framework and to your point, grow your skill set and understand how these vulnerabilities are exploited and how to remediate them effectively.
Yeah, well put. An itty bitty detail, through RBAC, you can have a very limited role. So you can show what Ken is now showing right now on a monitor in your SOC. So this is just a really great way to get a feel good about your environment when you walk in every day. Nice. So we got some questions coming in. All right. Ken, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Jump the stump here. How does Cynet differentiate between a bad actor and a user who simply mistyped their username?
Oh, that's a really good question. So there's lots of underlying detail about what a bad actor looks like and does. So one of the things that could make a user look like a bad actor is a compromised account. So typically, when you have a user that does their job, and even though 75% of that might be surfing Facebook, they have a pattern of behavior that they typically exhibit. As much as we like to all believe that we're unique snowflakes, all of us have a pattern of behavior that we normally perform. When you deviate from that in a massive way, at least statistically, then that could be an indicator that you're malicious. Now you might say, well, it's something special and I never do this again, but this is now what I'm doing today. Yeah, but it's not really going to break your patterns as much as you think it will. The applications you access, the way that you use your machine is all really the same. When those deviate, that's how we could differentiate between a bad actor and a normal user who, I fat fingered my password a couple of times and then I logged in. Okay, good. But was that account created today? Was that account locked and then all of a sudden unlocked by a process that's not normal? was that account logging in to a machine that it's never logged into before. 10 years of watching this account, it's never logged into these 3 machines. And today that's all it's done. So that could all be indicators of compromise.
All right, I got a couple other questions, Ken. Craig says, our current solution allows us different groups of machines so we can apply different levels of options and policies to different groups. Do you guys have that capability?
We do. We call those scan groups. And so you can set your policies, exclusions, whitelists, all file monitoring and Windows event monitoring, all based upon these scan groups. And they're all simple checkboxes. So it's nothing complex here either. So you just turn things on and off as needed.